Do you like being scared? Do you like playing games that make you scared? Do you like scary games? Do you like games that prey on the fears we have of the unknown? Spooky games? Do you like games that are also fun and challenging? Games that terrify you and yet still make you come back for more? Games that you can play with your friends over and over again and not get tired with? Well, Dead by Daylight is not your game. You might as well go play Phasmophobia or something that's actually scary. Because what you really are getting with Dead by Daylight isn't a scary game. It's scary for the first 5 minutes when you buy it. But then it really just boils down to, well, how about we show you what Dead by Daylight is and how you can make it infinitely less scary through gross incompetence and bullying new players. So what is Dead by Daylight? Dead by Daylight is an asymmetrical horror game. I have no idea what that means. I don't think anyone knows what that means. Where it pits four survivors against one killer. The killer's goal is to catch the survivors and sacrifice them on meat hooks found throughout the map to the entity. And survivors' goals are to avoid the killer and finish generators to power up the exit gates to then open the exit gates and leave. The game itself isn't in a good state. The devs have gone down the EA road of things and have decided to monetize the crap out of this game. $15 skins. They've just released a new chapter that is unfinished and broken. It broke the entirety of the game. And they have not really paid any attention to bug fixes or whatnot right now, but they've pumped out a lot of $15 skins. But that's not important. I could go on and on and on about how the game is horrible right now. But you don't want to hear about that. You want to hear about the fun stuff. So we're going to talk about the killers, and the killers are arguably what make this game both really fun and really bad because of how some of their powers work. So, in short, the entity, the thing is, I'm not going to go too much into the lore here. All there is that there's this giant spider-like appendage thing called the entity, and it resides in its own realm and feeds off of hope and despair. So what it does is it grabs survivors and killers from alternate dimensions and realities to play its twisted game of hide-and-seek. And then it basically puts them through it again and again and again. Kind of like Dante's Inferno's definition of hell, where it's just repetitive over and over again. Kind of like that. You don't have to do anything bad to end up in the entity's realm. You can just kind of exist in the same universe as the killers and get sucked up with its almighty Dyson. But, so how do the killers work? Well, let's get on to that. Don't know why you want to torture yourself by playing killer, but here we are. So, you're playing killer. You've got your weapon in front of you, you've got your power, that you totally didn't see that survivor right there. So your goal as a killer is to hit the survivors and hook them, sacrifice them, all that. Just everyone over this. This is going to be a quick rundown of how the killers work. You can smack survivors like this with your weapon, damage them for one health state. You have a little cooldown there, so you can't just instantly down them again. And when survivors get hit, they get a little boost of speed to get ahead of you, so the chase can continue for a bit. So that's a survivor standing by a pallet, and you want to try to chase survivors. Now this is called looping right here. This is a big mechanic of the game. Survivors are going to try to loop you around that pallet for as long as they can until they're forced to drop it. They're healing right there because they're my friends and they're helping me out with this video. But this is a small example of how a loop should work, minus the other survivors standing in the way. They can also drop that pallet on you to force you to drop any survivors you were carrying, or stun you like that. So now I've got the basics down of the killer. You can also kick pallets to break them and destroy them completely, or you can kick generators to damage them and start their regression. There's another successful hit there. But that's typically how a loop should go. You want to force a survivor to drop that pallet as early as possible so you can then break it and force them to move to a different area. And that Dwight is just menacingly walking towards me. But so now we got the basics, let's go in detail into more of the killers and their different powers and so on and so forth. Alright, so the first killer we got was the Trapper, and the Trapper, or his real name is Evan Macmillan. He was a son of a wealthy miner who owned a pretty big coal mining business. But Evan himself was a pretty good guy. He was a pretty nice guy. His dad was not a very nice guy and liked profit and liked being sadistic. So one day when Evan was like, "Hey Dad, we should probably stop working our workers to death," his response was to beat Evan with a crowbar and then kill all the workers. This caused Evan to somehow become like his father, and now he's obsessed with spiky bear traps and breathing heavily, and I don't know why every killer has to breathe like they just ran a 5K after 6 months of quarantine. Anyways, the Trapper's power is, you guessed it, bear traps. So your base kit, you start out with just one bear trap, which is pretty problematic considering since you can only carry one bear trap, you have to put it down somewhere, go to the other side of the map, and pick up a bear trap to go back to that area and trap it again. And by then, if there were any survivors there, they're gone. They're leaving. Which doesn't make any sense considering that the traps are placed so far apart. It's gonna take you at least the first 4 or 5 generators to place down your traps in one area, and then survivors have already completed the generators and are laughing at you at the exit gates because of how long it took to set up your traps. The best thing to do as Trapper is to place your traps down at pallets, windows, long hallways, patches of grass survivors can't see, stuff like that. That way you can end chases very quickly, but the trade-off for your power is you have little to no map pressure, unless you take the time to set up all of your traps in different areas. But normally the Trapper will only spawn with 10 to 15 traps in a match. If survivors see your traps, they can disarm them, or if you're carrying a survivor and you walk into your own trap, you'll drop any survivors you were carrying and allow them to get away. All in all, Trapper's a pretty good starter killer. It allows you to experiment with some powers, but he is very bullyable, and you are going to be relying on perks. I'm not going to be going into detail with perks, because the videos already look like it's going to be like 20 minutes long, and there are close to 200 perks in the game, so I don't really think that we have time for that. But Trapper's pretty cool. The Hillbilly is essentially that one meme where it's like, "Hey mom, can I have McDonald's?" And like, "No, we have McDonald's at home," and then it has a picture of really bad looking food. Well, essentially it's, "Hey mom, can I have Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise?" And your mom says, "We have Leatherface at home," and Leatherface is just a deformed pretzel. So, Max Thompson Jr. was the son of a farmer, and was born hideously disfigured. So his parents did what any parents would do if their son is born looking like a bad Auntie Anne's product. They they just locked him in a basement and kind of fed him pig slop. Yeah, a lot of killers have some pretty dark backstories, but we're not going to get to half of them because this video is almost 10 minutes long already. So the Hillbilly's power is his chainsaw sprint, or dash, or whatever. In short, you prime chainsaw and then you go very fast. You go nyom. When you're in your chainsaw, you don't really have a lot of control, but you can instantly down survivors you hit with it, you can instantly break pallets you hit with it, and if you run some add-ons, you can break breakable walls with it. Pretty nifty, right? What makes Billy so special is that he actually takes skill to play, unlike his chainsaw counterpart, Leatherface, who we might get to. Because you need to really be good with finding out when to turn, when to hit survivors, when to use your basic attack, when to use your chainsaw, all that jazz. So, it really boils down to, are you good with Billy? There's no real technique you can use to try to get good as Billy, it just takes time and practice to play him. One of your biggest strengths, though, is the fact that you can traverse large maps very, very quickly. So maps like the map I'm on, the wooded maps, or the cornfield maps, those are really big and you can get from one area to the other very quickly. So you have an insane amount of map pressure, and you're also pretty strong in the chase. Another small thing with Billy is that the amount of add-ons you can run to completely change how you play. For instance, when you think of a chainsaw person, you don't think of a stealth killer per se, but you have add-ons that can make your chainsaw silent for people outside your terror radius or all that jazz, and even then you can also run add-ons that decrease your charge-up time, so that when you're in a chase you basically almost have no charge up time. So you can get some pretty sick downs right there. Overall, Billy is one of the strongest killers in the game, and even though he did get nerfed temporarily, they kind of unnerfed the nerf while still keeping the nerf nerfed, so there's just a lot of nerfing going on for unnecessary reasons. Like Billy, the nurse takes a set amount of skill to play. The nurse's backstory is her name was Sally Smithson, and she worked at a mental hospital. Well, the reason she worked there was because before that, she and her husband lived in the States, and they were doing pretty well. The economy was booming, they were having a great time. Her husband worked as a lumberjack, until he pulled a Boba Fett and fell into a wood chipper, and the Great Depression hit America and thoroughly wrecked the economy. So, heartbroken, mentally broken, and financially broke, she had to go work somewhere, and she chose the Crotus Pren Asylum. While she was there, working there took a toll over the years, and eventually she took the number of living patients in the ward from, like 200? Down to 0. And then the entity took his almighty vacuum cleaner and sucked her up. So now she can teleport for some unknown reason. So that's pretty cool. So, her power works as follows. You have a little meter, right? And you can blink with it. It's teleporting, but it's blinking, and it's whatever. But the longer you hold it, the farther you'll go. Now, downside to that is that after you blink, you have a small window to hit a survivor. Other than that, you will suffer a stun regardless. Your vision will be obscured, and you'll slow down for a few seconds. It allows survivors to get away. On the plus side, you can blink twice. So if you, instead of hitting it, if you use that window to use your second blink and quickly blink to another location, you can avoid that first stun and only suffer the second stun. Now, if you're like me and you can't play the nurse for anything, you will end up teleporting around like a ping pong ball that also has a magnet inside of it and is flying around a room covered in metal. It's not going anywhere. Again, like Billy, she actually takes a amount of skill to play, and you have to really know what our survivors are going to do. Our survivors going to try to run you there? Are they going to drop that pallet and run away? Because you can teleport through pallets. Stunning a nurse is rare if it happens at all. So you have to know where survivors are going to go. Are they going to run this way? Are they going to run that way? Are they going to drop that pallet? It really just boils down to how good are you at tricking survivors into doing what you want them to do. And if you do that, you're basically god tier as nurse. If not, nurse takes a ton of skill and practice to play. I've been playing this game for a while, and I still can't get 4 kills with a nurse. I'm lucky if I can get 1. All in all, Dead by Daylight is a pretty fun game to play with friends. I would not recommend it at all for anyone who's looking for a multiplayer game to enjoy, because with how the game's unbalanced right now and the devs slowly losing control of the game in favor of monetization, it really makes for an unpleasant experience when you're playing with random people. But with friends, for a few laughs, maybe a scare here and there, it's really fun to play. So I hope this was a comprehensive guide to some of the killers in the game. I was going to try to do every killer, and I didn't realize that the script for this video went over 45 minutes, so we're just going to pretend that we went over most of the killers, and here we go. But this was a guide to some of the killers, some of the basic mechanics of Dead by Daylight, and maybe one day I'll see you in the fog. Or not. You were probably sleeping for most of this presentation anyway, so kudos to you if you actually remember the end.